And with Trotsky in her house, so came intellectuals all over the world like André Breton, the father of surrealism, who looks at this work by Frida. This is a painting done, imagine that you're in a tub. And so this is the water, and over here, it's all the images that she looks in the water, in the reflection of the water. And they're all like memories of her and her dress. And then this image of Frida with another woman in front of her parents, which is a scene that she would paint several times. This is an image of Frida with one of her girlfriends. Well, you thought you were gonna. And here you have other hair ideas for you. Frida, through the surrealist, is able to show her work in New York, in the Julian Levy Gallery, and in Paris. This painting, the frame, is bought by the Louvre. And there she meets Marcel Duchamp and Pablo Picasso. It is Picasso that gives her these earrings with the forms of hands that she would wear in several of her works. And then she would get many commissions. This is a portrait of Dorothy Hale, which is a woman that committed suicide. And a friend of hers said, "Could you do me a portrait for Dorothy's mother?" And this is what Frida came up with, which is jump. And Frida, wherever she went, she created this like sensation. These are the clothes that she wore. This is the two Fridas. She would do her most famous work. That happened when Diego requested a divorce from her. And this is the Frida Diego loved and the Frida Diego no longer loved. This one has a tiny portrait of Diego Rivera. And again, the Frida with Frida. She would also do this work where she presents herself dressed as a man, and above here it says, "Mira que si te quería fue por tu pelo. Ahora que estás pelona ya no te quiero. Look, if I loved you, it was because of your hair. Now that you don't have any hair, I don't love you anymore." And you see the scissor very close to her sex, as in the previous one. And then these like hairs that are like animals. But Frida was not inventing an image. Since she was very young, she had done cross-dressing, as you can see in these early photographs. Most of Frida's works are tiny, they're miniatures, with the exception of the two Fridas and this painting that is lost. Make a note of it. If you see it, call me. It's called the Wounded Table, and you see the same characters that we had seen in an early piece. Now, the divorce between Frida and Diego did not last too long. Diego Rivera had an American doctor give him a certificate in which he was declared medically incapable of fidelity because of glandular reasons. So they remarried, and even though they did not have a conventional marriage, so to speak, But if you look at their love letters and their correspondence, you see also a deep affection between them. And in the paintings, you see how in some of them, Frida paints herself as one person with Diego. And here you see Frida as the mother of Diego, no? Finally. Here you have Frida and Diego, and then here you have a movie where you actually see their interactions. Now, Frida is very close to the Surrealist movement. But she also has differences with the Surrealists. Perhaps the main difference is that whereas the Surrealists look for inspiration in foreign cultures, Frida looks for inspiration in her own culture. Plus, whereas in some of the Surrealist work like Dali, the message can be multiple or confusing. In Frida, it's very simple. Here it's called Thinking of Death, and it's clear, it's transparent. Now you would look at a work like this, and you would say, well, if that's not Surrealist, what is Surrealist, right? But this is really the way Frida lived. She really did have, as you can see in this photograph, a skeleton above her bed. Perhaps the closest thing that Frida would come to Surrealism would be her diary that she would keep at the end of her life. And in this diary, Frida would write the first things that came to her mind. If you want to do a Surrealist document, just when you get home, write everything that comes out of your mind without thinking it. You'll be surprised at what you can do. And so these are all these writings that Frida does. There's also the idea of the accident. For example, you put up an ink spot, and then you work around that ink spot. So a lot of the ideas of the Surrealists, here you see Frida looking at her diary. And these are some recent color photography. And again, this is interesting because you see her with her mustache. And you see how she never, in those days, the fashion was to have like very thin eyebrows, or Frida never changes herself to please anybody or to conform to anybody. For many years, her closets were locked, were sealed. Now they're open, and what we find is this incredible wealth of dresses and a very interesting way of combining traditional Mexico with, say, Chinese pieces, rebozos, Tehuana costumes. And these dresses often become parts of her paintings. This is why it's so absurd, those people that say, oh, I'm only interested in Frida's art, I don't want to know anything about her personal life. Eso es chisme. It's impossible because the personal and the professional are completely intertwined. And Frida and Diego also are instrumental in transforming the relationship of people with indigenous art in Mexico. Before them, everybody wanted to have European furniture and European art. So this idea of using indigenous art, indigenous furniture, is very much something that their generation promotes. And the parties of Frida, memorable. And she used to sing and cook. This is a delicious mole. This is chiles en nogada. Frida's chiles were legendary, and this is the Mexico's national dish because it's made with the colors of the flag. And again, you know, these flowers and these dishes become part of Frida's art as well. As you can see in these still lifes. This is a still life that was given to one of Mexico's first ladies. And when she realized that the central papaya looked so much like a vagina, she returned it. Now the grandkids must be cursing her, no? They've lost $2 million or so. But again, you see this combination of how even the most apparently common of themes, like fruits, in Frida's brushes become something completely different. This is one that is called The Bride, that is surprised to see life open. And you see all these fruits that are opening that become like metaphors of life. Or look at the phallic representation of some of these fruits. The same. This could be like a penis or a fallopian tubes. Or these fruits, they could be bleeding. It could be like animals. Or this representation of death. And you see the rotting fruits and the skeleton. I would like to also share with you some of Frida's writings. I love this one. This is a love letter. She had love Carlos Pellicer, and Carlos Pellicer was a gay poet in Mexico. And yet, she and Frida loved each other. And Frida writes to him and he says, "Can you invent verbs? ¿Se pueden inventar verbos? Yo quiero inventarte uno. Yo te cielo. Can you invent verbs? I want to invent one. I sky you. This way my wings will extend enormously to love you without limits." ¿Imaginas? Somebody tell you that? Yo te cielo, así mis alas se extenderán enormes para amarte sin medida. And then she says, "Gracias porque vives. Thank you for being alive. Porque ayer me dejaste tocar tu luz más íntima, because yesterday you let me touch your most intimate light. And you said, y dijiste con tus ojos y tus palabras, lo que yo he esperado toda mi vida. And you said with your eyes and with your words what I have been waiting for all of my life." I mean, love letters don't get any better than that, no? I mean, it's just extraordinary. I was just with Arturo Garcia Bustos in Mexico. He's a student of Frida. And he describes how Frida was this kind of powerful force. It was just exuberant. She always was telling jokes. One day they asked Frida, "Why do you drink so much?" She used to take like a bottle of tequila every day or brand. And she said, "Look, I drink to drown my sorrows, but the damn things have learned to swim." And in some of her works, Frida tries to connect with the earth, like if she were fertilizing the earth. She surrounds herself with children. Right now, I had a conversation with a couple that is with us, and they were telling me that they are friends with a girl that was in Frida's arms. Apparently, you were saying something about that? You would like to share with our audience? What did she say about being in the arms of Frida?
She said that her parents were good friends of Frida and Diego, and they socialized a lot. And I think our friend was about the age of this little boy in the picture when she sat on Frida's lap, and she remembers it vividly. She's now in her early 70s or late 60s. She said that when she sat in Frida's lap, she hated it because she smelled like cigarettes and medicine.
Well, this is a painting she does called Moses, in which she connects She says the reason people look for heroes and gods, she puts all the religions and all the heroes. You know, you see Marx and you see Napoleon and you see all the deities. He says the reason people look for heroes and for gods is fear. Fear of life and fear of death. And also, Frida and Diego surround themselves with animals. They have monkeys, doves, dogs, and they often paint them. This is a painting she did when her father had died, and the caterpillar becomes a butterfly as a way to signify rebirth. But perhaps her most famous animal painting is the one inspired by her little deer. She had a little deer called Granizo. Can you see her? And it's remarkable that you could get so close to a deer. They're normally very nervous animals. So to be able to have a deer that acts like a dog requires a special kind of personality. And in this painting, there is in Mexico the famous deer dance, la danza del venado. And so she would put her face in the deer. And then here you look at the arrows. What does that remind you of? No? Saint Sebastian, of course. Yeah. Again, it's these kind of images of the saints that she would. Here again, you see the thorns. Again, clearly a Christian. But yeah. And all of this that I have described, all this life by a woman that lived in the most awful pain. I have read studies that said that Frida every day had a pain that would knock somebody off. She had to wear all kinds of traction. Sometimes she had to paint like this. And she had to wear these corsets. This is one of the last films of Frida when she's already, very, but she's still painting, still very sick. And the pain, she expresses it in her art. This is a work called The Broken Column, in which she presents herself with this broken back, and then you see all the different nails as to indicate the pain. The biggest nail is on the heart. In 1946, Frida tries a new surgery where they would fuse her back with metal, but the surgery is a disaster. The wound gets infected, and Frida would never really recover after that. And yet, in a painting like this, she would present herself with the banner, a little banner that says, Árbol de la Esperanza, mantente firme, tree of hope, stay firm. She comes back to Mexico and she's almost permanently in the hospital. This is a painting that she does with the doctor, trying to have this kind of false optimism. The doctor sometimes says that you can eat anything you want. And the pain is unbearable. Diego tries everything to distract her. They even create this like marionettes that she can play with while in the bed. Then she develops gangrene, and they have to cut a leg of her. This is the only time that she would paint herself as an artist. And after they cut her leg, she would write in her diary, "Feet, what do I need you for if I have wings to fly?" Pies, ¿para qué los necesito si tengo alas para volar? Frida had never had an individual exhibit of her work in Mexico. And so her friends, at seeing that she was so sick, decided to organize this for her. And so this is the exhibit that they do for her, the great photographer, Dolores Alvarez Bravo. They brought Frida on a stretcher. And can you imagine? I mean, normally you would bring somebody so sick, everybody would be kind of quiet, reverent. Well, they install Frida like that. And she immediately starts telling color jokes and singing. And pretty soon she's driving everybody like in ecstasy. So much that the nurses are worried that they might hurt her, that people were so excited. But I mean, it's hard for me to imagine a person that can do that. You can bring them on a stretcher, amputated, dying, and she can still drive a crowd mad with ecstasy and laughter and make them sing and dance and have a force of personality so strong that you can make people forget everything. It's extraordinary. And even Frida cannot take the pain any longer. So they start giving her all kinds of drugs, of morphine, to stop the pain. But the problem that when they put a lot of morphine, even if it's medical, like Demerol or this, you become addicted to it too. So in the later stages of her life, Frida had all this addiction to these morphine drugs. And in some of her last works, like this one, she loses the precision of the earlier paintings. But you still have the color, the power of the color. And then in 1954, in Guatemala, people ask about the roots of the humanitarian crisis that we're looking now in Central America. Well, in 1954, Guatemala had elected democratically a president called Jacobo Arbenz. And Arbenz wanted to improve the quality of life of the Guatemalans so they were not so desperately poor, because Central America is basically owned by these great corporations. Guatemala, for example, by the United Fruit Company, that paid no taxes and paid very little for the fruit. So this man was not a socialist or anything, but he was trying to get some revenue for Guatemala to try to create some wealth in Central America. So promptly, what happens in Guatemala is that the US supports a brutal military coup that would be repeated. This is a story that would be repeated again and again, everywhere in Latin America. In Nicaragua, you have the Somozas. In Dominicana, you have Trujillo. Later in Brazil, see, and all these people that repress, steal, kill people, and leave basically a chaos, a lack of democratic institutions, a desperate poverty, institutional vacuums that are filled now by drug lords and so on. So when Frida realizes that this coup is taking place, even though she's so sick, she asks Diego Rivera to take her in this rally to protest against the intervention in Guatemala. And she would carry this big banner that has a dove and the legend. You can't see it very clearly, but it says, "Por la paz," for peace. Sadly, this would be the last time that Frida would be seen alive. She would die of pneumonia 4 days later, the 13th of July of 1954. She was only 47 years old. In this, her last painting, Frida would kind of bring back all of her artistic powers. The painting is a powerful affirmation of life, but it is also an answer to fascism. In Spain, a fascist general, Millán Astray, had entered the University of Salamanca with the cry, "Viva la muerte," long live death. So Frida, I think, was responding to the fascist general. But she was also doing what she had done all of her life, because for all her troubles, Frida, as Hayden Herrera would say, is a symbol of persevering strength. To all of those oppressed by sickness and sorrow, she offers hope. In this, her last painting, she would sign it, and then in the front watermelon, she would write a phrase that could very well summarize her life and her legacy. "Viva la vida," she would write. "Long live life." Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have a little encore for you. This is the only color film clip we know of Frida Kahlo. There you see, you have an example of how to put the flowers in. Thank you very much. I would like to express once more my gratitude to Long Beach Parks, Recreation and Marine. Dale, thank you very much. We will be back in Long Beach August 9th in Granada.